Morning. Welcome to week number 7. And this week we're going to be covering chapters 13 and 14, the final two chapters of our book. And chapter 13 is going to be talking about investing in mutual funds. And you're going to be looking at, first of all, what is a mutual fund? Why would I want to get into a mutual fund? And one thing that you want to look at when you're looking at investing in mutual funds is to know that a mutual fund is just a group of investments. They don't just take all your money and put it in one basket, because you don't know that one stock might take off and go wild, or it might crash and you would not have anything left over. So that's what a mutual funds, what it does is it pools the money of many investors. So it could be me and you and my neighbor and my best friend and my sisters, and we're all together and we're investing in a stocks and bonds. And so that's what mutual funds are. It's just an investment of different securities, and it makes your investment a little more secure. So if you have one stock that's doing really great and it's going up, you're okay. If you've got one and it crashes, then you're not going to lose everything you had. I highly recommend mutual funds. Most of the time, if you're invested in a 401k, that is what a mutual fund is. It does a lot of investing from different areas. Okay, so you will want to talk about, there's one thing, and it talks about is the load fund and the no load fund. And a load fund is they charge you, your stockbroker charges you up to 8.5% of the purchase. So if you say, I'm going to go in and I'm going to join this group of investors, and so they may charge me to do that. No load fund is no sales charge. You just have to kind of figure out which is best for you. I was always cautionary, and I did not want to risk a lot of money. I didn't have the personality to be able to weather storms. I always went with more secure stocks, invested in Coca-Cola and UPS and different things like that, because I didn't have a good tolerance for risking my money that I worked so hard for. So it talks about, if you look at, if you look in your book, if you have one, it just tells you the different types. If they don't charge you a load fund, a lot of them will charge you a fee each year. And a lot of the companies pay that fee, and then they do your investments for you. So that's talking about the different types of investments, talking about, again, back to government bonds and the different things that you could look at to do that. One thing you can always do is go on the internet and you can do research about the ones that you want them to invest in for you. The final chapter is chapter 14, and it's talking about starting early, retirement, and estate planning. I said week 1 that the whole goal of going to work is to prepare for retirement. Now, I know right now you guys are, some of you are in your 20s, some of you are in your 30s, and you're thinking, no, the whole goal of me going to work was to pay my bills. Well, yeah, that's true. But as you mature and you keep growing, then you're going to be looking down the road toward retirement. So you want to be prepared for retirement. And some of them is, what is my retirement plan? When do I want to plan on retiring? I've had students that'll tell me in their final presentation, my long-term financial goal is to retire when I'm 45. Good luck with that. Most of you, now that's not saying all of you, but most of you are not going to retire at 45. A lot of people won't even retire when they're 55. Most people now are retiring at 65, which is probably the retirement age that most people are starting to really look at. Okay, financially, can I afford to retire at this age? And that's what you have to look at. Look at what it costs for living. how much and the time you get 65, most of you should have your house paid off. So you can say, okay, but you're still going to have taxes. You're still going to have insurance. You're still going to have upkeep on that house. So how much do I need per month to be able to maintain that? Then once you've kind of figured out that, then you have to look at, okay, what about a vehicle? Uh, how much am I going to have to pay for a vehicle every month? And I can tell you from experience, you thought insurance was high when you turned 21 and your parents said, okay, it's time for you to start paying your car insurance. What do you get to 65 and you go, whoa, why are they charging me more? Because they say after 65 that you start to lose a little bit of your cognitive thinking and you can't put on the brake pedal as fast or something. I don't know. It just amazed me when I got my insurance bill last week and it was three times what I had been paying. But it was because I turned 65. So you got to think about that. All right, what about the utilities? What about medical bills? What about groceries? So you've got to sit down and you've got to be diligent about it. This is how much money I have to have every month to live comfortably like I have been. If you can't afford that, then you can't afford to retire. You have to look at Social Security. Um, I don't know if Social Security will still be available when you get to be retirement age. Some say it will, some say it will not. I don't know. I just know that even though, and you can't live on Social Security alone. So you want to think about that. So that's why it's important that chapter 13, that you know how to invest your money so that when you get to be 65, then or 67 or 70 or 75 or however old it is when you decide to retire, that you have enough money to live comfortably. You want to look at your estate planning. If if you have children, who gets custody of the children is something if they're below 18. I can't give you custody of my children now because they're adults, they're on their own. But if you die, if something happens, do you know who you want to raise your children? Do they have the same values you want them to have? So you want to look at that. What happens to your assets if something happens to you? Are they sold at auction? Who are you going to give this or that to? So it's important that you have a will. Even at a young age, if you have children, you need a will so that somebody knows what your final thoughts are. One of the things I used to do when I was on campus a couple of years ago was I made my students write their own obituary. And most of them were very thought provoking, like, okay, I want to be remembered as. And when I was on campus, 95% of my classes were all freshmen, and they were mostly athletes. And you would have thought that they would have said, oh, I want to be remembered as a great football player, basketball player, soccer player, cheerleader, whatever. But that wasn't the case. Most of them really put some thought into it, and they wanted to be remembered for what they had contributed to society. What kind of a legacy had they left? So that is something you could think about, and you sit down and write your obituary and see if it aligns with how you're living now, because you can't go back and erase the past, but you can protect your future. So I hope you've enjoyed this class. Next week, not this week, next week, the final March 3rd is our final week. That is when your final presentations are due. So you need to be kind of looking at that, working on those, make sure they're recorded, make sure I can hear them. And remember, it is how it applies to you. Answer the questions truthfully. There's no right or wrong answers. Truthfully, how does it apply to you? And it's going to be an eye-opening experience for you, I do believe, because it makes you stop and think about you're not infallible. You will die one day, and you want your finances and your life to be in order. So have a great day. Enjoy the week. I know it's cold in Jasper or Waleska, and stay inside, get your work done, work on your final presentations, and enjoy. Thanks a lot. Bye.